The next coping skill. This one is called Must Cliff. You can see the title up top. For older kids, this is, again, is appropriate for teens or adults. I changed the name and it becomes Expectation Cliff. Because the lesson here is, it's our expectations that set us up for our frustration and anger. It's really not the world. It's we set ourselves up for frustration based on what we expect. And so I start off with a story that engages the listener, and I talk about, make a simple, you can see there's a little bit of a rectangle on the left, and there's this little body of water. And I tell the client that here you are, standing up here on Must Cliff. You're out there, it's a lovely day, and you're just checking out the view. And that sea happens to be called the sea of despair. Okay, that's the sea of sadness and anger. All right, so, but if you walk around the world with very, very hard expectations, very severe expectations, you actually nudge yourself closer to the edge of that cliff. And you could fall in if you're not careful. Here's why. So I start to write in underneath where the person's standing, we call those cliff words that nudge you to the edge of the cliff of falling into sadness and anger. And so you'll see, if you read down them, this is the cognitive piece. This is cognitive behavioral therapy made very concrete for young people. You write down some of the phrases that you know are in a child's head that sets them up for their frustration. This child was like, I must get my way. And so then I put a rectangle, I highlighted the word must. Why must? Because let's define what must means. Must means, well, what must we have to survive? I must have food, water, shelter, air, right? I will die without those. That's what must means. But if you think I must get my way, right? I must have 15 more minutes of iPad time, right? Are you gonna die without those 15 minutes of iPad time? No. But for the young person who walks around the world thinking I must get my way, then they're gonna act. If you say no, how are they gonna feel? They're gonna fall right off the cliff into this sea of sadness and anger. So let's fix that. Let's improve those cliff words. And so if you can see in my cartoon, there is that branch. In all cartoons, there's always a branch hanging off a cliff. And there's a ladder there. So you can rescue yourself. So we call the antidote, the successful cognitive thinking, rescue words. You can rescue yourself from falling into that frustration and anger. So if you look at number 1 on the rescue words side, I cue it up and I tell the kids to start this sentence with the word sometimes. Sometimes is one of the most rescuing words for someone who's inflexible and rigid. So instead of I must get my way, sometimes I get my way and sometimes I don't, and I'll be okay if I don't. How is someone going to react if they think that walking around the world? Okay, someone says no, but they already have in their head, sometimes I get my way and sometimes I don't, I'll be okay. Well, they're not gonna freak out, are they? They're gonna stand firmly on the cliff. So that's why it's a rescue word. So then when you're working with the kids and parents, or when you're working with the child, you say, I'm gonna be listening for all the times when you say something like, sometimes I get my way and sometimes I don't. Or even if you just skip to, I'll be okay if I don't get my way. Yes, that's awesome. Score. You have just saved yourself a lot of extra frustration. Likewise, let's go to number 2 on cliff words. Here's another script, a rigid mental script. I have to have it now. And now that I have a little more experience, I would even put a rectangle around the word I, because I is that egocentric word. I am the only person who can get it now, right? I, me, so there's egocentrism, right there. Have to is the same as must. I have to get it, and check out the third word that's bracketed, now. Now is such a cliff word for kids because that means there is not a single other time that this will be acceptable. I will die if I don't get this now. If I don't have ice cream now, I will die. And if you say no to me, I'm going to act, my dino brain is going to kick in because you're threatening me. So let's do a rescue thought for that. If you look at number 3 in the rescue thoughts, the word maybe. I'll coach kids to say maybe. Or actually, let's go to number 2. I don't have to have it now. Maybe I can have it later. Maybe and later are incredibly rescuing words for the rigid and egocentric person. Or I don't have to have it now. Maybe we can take turns, right? Maybe we, notice the word we in there. We defeats egocentrism because you're including someone else. So this is how you start to loosen up some kids' very sticky, rigid thinking and egocentric thinking, if you can really create a visual compare and contrast for them. And you can show them, I must get my way. Really? Must you? Are you going to die? No. And believe it or not, it really is okay to say, are you going to die without getting that? Because it paints it in such black and white terms that it really helps the child to see your point.